It's not easy being in a science fiction movie. Galactic space battles, terrifying alien invasions, or even time travel shenanigans leave characters in grave danger 24/7. Heck, even the tagline for Ridley Scott's Alien was "In space, no one can hear you scream." As a result, when you sit down to watch some sci-fi, seeing someone get killed is just par for the course. Death is almost a certainty. Now, we say almost because, believe it or not, there are actually a handful of science fiction flicks where no one kicks the bucket. So, with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture here with 10 sci-fi movies where nobody dies. Number 10, Explorers. 1985's Explorers is remembered mostly for marking the film debuts of both Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. Directed by Joe Dante of Gremlins fame, Explorers can be best described as a mesh of space camp, E.T. and Flight of the Navigator. The plot follows the adventures of 4 teenagers who build their own spaceship to discover alien life. While not considered groundbreaking or particularly brilliant upon its release, the film is still a charming and incredibly fun family adventure that rides on the likability of its central child actors. It's a feel-good flick, and as such, it would have been rather strange had a character died during the film. Interestingly, Dante doesn't have such fond memories of Explorers. Thanks to the studio pushing forward its release date, production and post-production was incredibly rushed, and Dante claims that the final product wasn't exactly what he had intended. So who knows, maybe in his original draft things were a bit more sinister. Unfortunately, the release date Explorers was moved to was just a week after Back to the Futures, and as a result, this ended up being a financial failure. However, since then, the film has gained a significant cult following and ranks highly in the family sci-fi film genre. Number 9, Back to the Future. Just as much a comedy as it is science fiction, it would have been a bit odd if someone had died in 1985's classic Back to the Future. After Marty McFly accidentally time travels from 1985 to 1955 in a DeLorean built by his friend Doc Brown, he must ensure that his parents fall in love or else he'll be erased from existence. To be honest, it does seem a bit odd to have to explain the plot of Back to the Future to anyone, since it's one of the best and most famous movies ever made, but, just in case someone didn't know. There's very little to praise about this film that hasn't been already. From its incredible writing and directing, career-defining performances from Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson and Crispin Glover, and the iconic score and soundtrack, courtesy of Alan Silvestri and Huey Lewis and the News. Plus, the DeLorean is just the coolest movie car ever. While the whole plot is driven by Marty's desire not to die, death escapes all characters in the movie. We do get close a couple of times though, namely when Marty starts to disappear during the school dance and earlier on in the film when Doc Brown is seemingly machine-gunned down by the Libyans, only for it to be revealed later on that he survived thanks to Marty's warning from the past. Now, the same cannot be said for the sequel, Back to the Future Part 2, where George McFly is shot by Biff Tannen, albeit off-screen, resulting in a darker, less humorous film. Fortunately, Part 3 of the franchise returned to its roots, with no deaths and a plot focusing specifically on preventing the demise of Doc Brown. Number 8, The Vast of Night. In the middle of the dumpster fire that was the year 2020, Amazon Prime premiered a brand new, critically acclaimed sci-fi mystery film that has, for the most part, gone completely under the radar. And that is a crying shame. Heavily inspired by and paying homage to classic sci-fi TV shows like The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, The Vast of Night is set in the 1950s in New Mexico and follows 2 teenagers who begin to suspect that there might be something hidden in the night sky above them. The debut film from writer-director Andrew Patterson, The Vast of Night is an absolute triumph from start to finish. Despite its minuscule $700,000 budget, the film looks immaculate with brilliant long takes and tracking shots that would impress the likes of Roger Deakins and enough creepy imagery and dialogue to spook even the most hardcore of horror fans. Where the film excels though is through its largely unknown cast, with the 2 young leads Sierra McCormick and Jake Horowitz giving awards-worthy performances. Now, there is a point of contention here, as there is a possibility that some characters do indeed bite the bullet. We hear a tale of an abducted child, and the movie ends with our main characters disappearing after finally sighting a UFO, with their fates left ambiguous. But since we don't see anyone actually die, we can't disqualify it from this list. And this is partly why The Vast of Night is so special. Unlike other films of its genre and budget, it doesn't rely on cheap scares and gory deaths to entertain viewers. Just a slow, suspenseful, spine-tickling mystery that will leave audiences glued to the screen. Number 7, The Day the Earth Stood Still. While the 2008 Keanu Reeves starring remake features a rather large body count, the original and far superior The Day the Earth Stood Still trades action and violence for a wider discussion about humanity's future. Released in 1951, during the early stages of the Cold War and the nuclear arms race, the film follows the journey of an alien named Klaatu, who visits Earth to warn mankind to change their harmful ways or face destruction. While its premise may sound ominous, the film preaches peace throughout and even goes out of its way to make the point that conflict has no place in the universe. Even the sinister robot Gort never kills anyone in the film, instead choosing to disintegrate the army's weapons when Klaatu is shot. And while the alien does admit his revival at the end of the film is only temporary, he is still alive when the credits roll. Beautifully shot with then mind-blowing special effects and accompanied by a haunting musical score, the film deeply affected audiences at the time of its release, with the fear of nuclear war now firmly installed in the minds of people everywhere. On a slightly less bleak note, the film's characters, imagery and story have heavily influenced pop culture and sci-fi movies that followed. Even those who haven't seen either versions of this film knows of Gort and the phrase Klaatu Barada Nikto. 70 years on, The Day the Earth Stood Still is still talked about as one of the very best films of the science fiction genre. Number 6. WALL-E. One of, if not the best Pixar movie ever made, and therefore by default, one of, if not the best animated movies ever made, WALL-E is a work of art. The film follows the adventures of the heartwarming titular robot as he saves humanity while falling in love with fellow machine Eve. It's not uncommon for animated movies to feature gruesome deaths. Just look at The Lion King or Tarzan, for example. But while WALL-E's subject matter and themes are incredibly sinister, no humans are killed. Sure, Eve blasts a security robot and the villainous Auto gets switched off, but as WALL-E's revival confirms, you can't really kill a machine. Even without characters dying, WALL-E never fails to bring tears to the eyes, and remains probably the most hard-hitting and bravest film Pixar has ever made, thanks to its lack of dialogue, striking visuals, and biting satire. Its message about pollution, technology, and consumerism, told through the eyes of a mostly non-talking garbage robot, should on paper have fallen completely flat, and yet they didn't. Number 5. Ghostbusters. Is it possible to kill something that's already dead? If you believe the answer to be yes, then feel free to disqualify Ghostbusters from this list, as the titular team of paranormal investigators most definitely take out plenty of ghosts, or as Peter Venkman would put it, we came, we saw, we kicked its ass. It may be nearly 40 years old now, but Ghostbusters still holds up as one of the funniest movies ever made. It is endlessly quotable, with every line delivered by its wickedly talented cast a piece of pure comedy gold. Its theme song is one of the best in movie history, and now an absolute staple of Halloween music. Unfortunately, there isn't enough time to explain what makes the film the greatest action comedy ever, as well as one of the best films of the 1980s, and of all time, for that matter. There is simply something magical about the combination of Ivan Reitman's direction, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis's script, and the performances of the stellar cast, especially Bill Murray at his deadpan best. While its sequel and 2016 reboot may have been poorly received, the original Ghostbusters will always be fondly remembered. Number 4. Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Even when you look back to the original series, the Star Trek franchise hasn't been afraid to kill people off. So it was very surprising and refreshing for audiences in 1986 when Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home was released and not a single person died during its runtime. With Earth in peril from an alien probe, the crew of the now destroyed USS Enterprise must travel back in time to 1986 in order to locate some humpback whales that can communicate with the probe and save all life on the planet. While the plot sounds comically awful, The Voyage Home is probably the most charming and humorous of all 13 Star Trek movies, and fans of the series rate it as one of the best, alongside The Wrath of Khan and the 2009 J.J. Abrams reboot. After successfully directing the previous installment, The Search for Spock, Leonard Nimoy returned for another go behind the camera, with this light-hearted comedic touch bringing out the best of the original cast. The Spock actor was indeed the main driving force behind the film's lighter tone and lack of deaths, saying that he wanted no dying, no fighting, no shooting, no photon torpedoes, no phaser blasts, no stereotypical bad guy. I wanted people to really have a great time watching this film, and if somewhere in the mix we lobbed a couple of big ideas at them, well, then that would be even better. From the very beginning, Star Trek has always promoted the idea of brains over brawn, and while subsequent films and TV series often forgot that message, for better and for worse, The Voyage Home is a real reminder of what the franchise is all about. If Star Trek is something that you are very interested in, then make sure that you head over to our sister channel Trek Culture for all the latest and greatest news and updates following Star Trek. Number 3. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Overshadowed by 1977's other science fiction blockbuster, some random film called Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is Steven Spielberg's underrated masterpiece. Not too dissimilar to Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, Close Encounters explores the reaction of mankind when UFOs arrive on Earth. While its lack of action may bore some, there is no doubting Close Encounters is a feast for the senses. Incredible special effects, beautiful visuals, it did win the Oscar for Best Cinematography, and one of John Williams' most haunting and eerily beautiful scores makes watching this film an unforgettable experience. The terrific ensemble cast, headed by Richard Dreyfuss and Melinda Dillon, make it through the entire movie. While it seems as though the aliens have been kidnapping and killing off members of the armed forces as well as others, the grand finale reveals all the abductees to be alive and well as they emerge from the UFO. Unlike most depictions of alien invasion movies, the extraterrestrials actually do come in peace. It's a great bit of misdirection from Spielberg, especially after his previous film Jaws, not to have a scary villain, so to speak. Sandwiched in between Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounters has been constantly overlooked by film fanatics and casual audiences alike for far too long now. Number 2. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Back-to-back entries from Steven Spielberg here with the beloved E.T. the Extraterrestrial. It's impossible to find anyone who doesn't like E.T., and it's even harder to describe why it's one of the best films ever made in just a few short sentences. It just has a certain magic about it that you just don't find in many movies. From the amazing performances from the child actors, John Williams' score, the reveal of Peter Coyote as Keys, and the iconic shot of E.T. and Elliot flying past the moon, the movie is perfection from start to finish and a staple of any childhood. The film was the highest grossing movie of all time for 11 years until Spielberg's Jurassic Park, and was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And while the Academy gave the Golden Statuette to Gandhi, director Richard Attenborough wasn't of the same opinion. He said, "I was certain that not only would E.T. win, but that it should win. It was inventive, powerful, and wonderful." As for character deaths, of course, E.T. appears to be lifeless at one stage, but fortunately is revived in one of the best and most joyous moments of the entire film. Nevertheless, his death and eventual departure continues to reduce even the most stoic of audience members to tears. Now, excuse me while I find some tissues. Number 1. The Martian. Arguably the best film of the last decade, The Martian is an inspiring, exhilarating, and hilarious science fiction epic, where, to the surprise of no one still watching, nobody dies. Stranded on Mars after a mission gone wrong, astronaut Mark Watney must rely on his wit, will, and intellect to survive. Matt Damon, giving the best performance of his career to date, leads an all-star ensemble cast, including the likes of Jessica Chastain, Jeff Daniels, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. It's thanks largely to the cast and Drew Goddard's screenplay that The Martian is as entertaining and brilliant as it is. There is a perfect balance of laughs and cries, and the science is accurately portrayed, yet not mind-numbingly boring. Easily Ridley Scott's best film since Blade Runner, the lighter tone and more hopeful outlook marks a departure from the veteran director's previous work that was most welcome. Nevertheless, the film retains Scott's trademark visual wonder and comes with a cracking soundtrack that perfectly encompasses the story's tone. Unlucky not to win any of its 7 Oscar nominations, The Martian and Damon did take home the Best Film and Best Actor awards at the Golden Globes, in the comedy or musical category. Yeah, still not sure about how that works. The Martian also earns the rare distinction of being a movie where Sean Bean doesn't die. Who knew that was possible? And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.